This then is our second Sunday in that trio of series in which we address singleness, marriage, and divorce. In the course of last week, we did see that it is actually a good thing to be single if we understand what singleness entails. And in the bid to show we understand, we actually exercise absolute abstinence from sexual activities because we realize if singleness is accepted as something that is given from God and by God, He also gives us the ability to maintain that status, unless, of course, we choose to be open rebels. But we realize if we are listening into the Almighty, we can actually stand against the temptation and take the course rightly that our God wants us to walk in. But in the course of today, we turn the flip and come to that place where we say, well, though singleness is good, there's also another good thing. It is called marriage. Now, where shall I belong? To the good single aspect or to the good marriage aspect? Well, Paul has given us the answer. He says, as God has called you to be, remain in the state in which you have been called. And so, we can't belong to both. We belong to the one or to the other. We read the second verse today of 1 Corinthians chapter 7 as we address the concept of marriage. Here's what the second verse says. Nevertheless, in the first verse it said, it's all right for a man not to marry or a woman not to get married. It's all right. But in the second verse is, but, nevertheless, however, to avoid immorality, let every man have his own wife, and let every woman have her own husband. Paul is simply saying, therefore, marriage is permissible. And as he says in a later verse, well, if you are single and you find that you cannot contain your feelings, well, there is nothing wrong. You do not sin by getting married. Get married. Two thoughts rise out of that little text. And the first is this: avoid and or overcome temptation. That's one reason a man may get married. That's one reason a woman may get married. And let's just recollect that Paul is actually addressing an issue that has been raised, just one of those issues that has been raised by the Corinthian church. We have this problem. How should we respond to it? There is this concept of free sex amongst us. How do we respond? And Paul is saying, be single. If you can't be single, then here is the place to exercise your sexual desires in. Get married. Period. We live in a society that in some sense is similar to what was going on at Corinth. And so we do well to listen in, as Paul says, because of immorality. Let each man have his own wife. Let each woman have her own husband. In many instances, sex is taken to be an expression of love. And so you look at someone's leg, you think you love them, you go to bed. Or just their structure. So I love you, you go to bed. And boy is saying, no, this is not right. I don't know how many of you have watched that program on our national television called Coronation Street. I used to be very interested in it. And I mean very. But then I realized, it's just sleeping around, that is, one man can sleep with this girl, next with her mother, next with... What's the point? It's dirty. I don't watch it. Even when it appears now, I just flash by it, I go, what's the point? That, according to many, is what is called love. But if sex is love, is a rapist a lover? Oh, he raped that girl, he loves her. Would he have loved her and then raped her? No, he wouldn't. Are those women who are abused by and large loved? So sex is not an expression of love. But those who love each other in the truest and deepest sense of the word can go in that direction when they are married. But we also notice that sex is seen as a free form of pleasure. And you have Marvin Gaye's, let's get it on. It is synonymous to what many of us call consensual sex. Well, in the world, you can talk about consensual sex among adults, and the courts of law will let you get away with that because it was consensual. The Bible doesn't talk about consensual sex outside marriage. It talks about it within marriage. And so as far as God is concerned, therefore, marriage is the only place where sex should be expressed. And that is what Paul is telling these people. Here's a good thing that has been given to humanity to enjoy, but it has been taken out of context. Now I tell you, if you love to taste, love to experiment, love to have this act, get married. To some people, sex is a tool of making money. And that's why you have people selling themselves, male and female. There are such things as male and female prostitutes. But that again is erroneous as far as we are concerned. There are those who do not realize that marriage is sex is a very common temptation. It comes to each one of us, and if one of us would say, I've never been sexually tempted, I don't know how honest you will be. The temptation is not wrong. It is yielding to the temptation that is what is wrong. And so each one of us can sit here and ask ourselves this question. Do I want to express sex as a party spirit, as some people do? I was watching Dr. Phil's program at some point. A 15-year-old girl unashamedly said, so many friends and ourselves decided to have a sex party. So they'll just be taking turns. This boy sleeps with this girl, then they exchange. She goes to the next boy comes to this one, and taking turns, sex party. And I was glad when Dr. Phil says, is that normal for you? Is that a normal way of living? But not only are there gang rapes, there are things like that. Because sex is a form of pleasure. Just go out and enjoy yourself. I don't know how much the Corinthians engaged in, but it was quite apparent amongst them. And we who live in a society where it is sex is taken to be an expression of love, might well begin to think, Is it right? Is it really right? Is it? Because of immorality, because there are those that are taking this marriage act out of its context. Well, I say to you, says Paul, get married. Nowadays, it's almost an evil to say to some people, I am a virgin. What did you say? Well, that's something people should pride in. Because if you're saying you are a virgin, you're saying, I'm leaving myself for my husband. I'm leaving myself for my wife. And think how rich your relation is going to be if you can say to your spouse at the time you get married, I waited for you. There are very few people that can lay claim to that. But that's the way it should be. And that is what the apostle is telling the people at Corinth. But he is aware there are many who have lost their virginity. And he's saying to them, ultimately, you can enter a second virginity, or a third virginity, or a fourth virginity, or a fifth virginity, whatever the case might be. You can begin a new page now. And that's what he's telling them. Because there has been this wrong thing, now I want to encourage you to enter into the territory where you do the right thing. And as we sit here, some of us can look back and begin to say, this is how I've wasted my life. All right. Now, don't waste it anymore. Let it be seen for what it is. And may I say this? So many, even in the church, are carried away by the act of sex, that if we who call ourselves Christians can take it and put it in its place, we will be speaking to the onlooking world that we have a God who has power over what he has created and can give people an exercise by which they can control themselves and only engage in this act when he himself says, go ahead. Not because they feel and they want and so they long and they just want to carry themselves about as they feel like. Just, I feel it, so I need to do it. No, Paul said no. If you are Christians, you can't be like that. It must be different with you. It's not what you feel, it's what you are taught. It's not what you want, it's all about the truth. It's not about your passion being satisfied. It's about making a God happy, the God who has created you. I wonder how many of us are ready to begin on that pathway. For there can be a very big difference between who you are and who God will make out of you if you are ready to go that pathway. I don't know if you are feeling the way I do, but I feel a little hot now. So excuse me a bit. Let's find out. It'll take a little while, but I'll be done soon. There you are, you got it there. You got it. My wife brought me this. Now I'm taking it off. I don't know how much you thought before that. It's a good suit, but it felt a little heavy at this time. Now all my thought gone off, hasn't it? How do I look? Is this the same person? You can identify Emmanuel. But am I not looking different? I looked a little hefty, a little heavy, but now, but still the same person. But something has changed. Well, when you move from a single state into a married state, something changes. You are the same person, but the status, the situation is no longer the same. And so you now must begin to fit into what you have entered, what you have come into. We have recently elected a new prime minister. He is called Justin Trudeau. The advert said not ready, but apparently he is ready. Because he's now the head of state. What will he say? Oh, you did not vote me in, I'm not your prime minister, you did not vote him, No. He will say to each one of us, I am your PM. I talked about change. And change is all about being concerned about the welfare of my people. So whichever corner of the country you are in, I am your prime minister. And those of us who look at him, those of us who are aged, will say, that's just a young man. He's my prime minister. I should admire him for that. Those of you who are young, a young man, you should adore him in the human sense of the word, because it's an inspiration to you. Something can be done, even in the lives of youth, they can be successful. And there it is. He is married to this nation, and he has vowed to get this nation going. And when we listen to those vows, I don't know what went on in our hearts. If we are genuine citizens, we said, Hi to Honorable Prime Minister, we will be true to your rulership and respect you and accept you for it. When you left your single state and came into the married state, you left a status about which you can say, that is my past. You're not entering a status about which you are saying, this is my present. For notice what Paul says. Each man among you should have his own, yes. And each woman among you should have her own. Simple. Not each man among you must have their own wife, or each woman among you must have their own. No, monogamy. One man, one wife. One woman, one man. And it's simple. As simple as that, yet difficult to maintain. What is marriage? It is one man getting hold of one woman and the two being bonded together. That's what marriage is. But in these fashionable days, a woman is free to get married to an animal, or a man the same way, or a woman get married to a woman, a man get married to a man. Whatever they feel like, it's a free world. Go ahead and do that. If I hear that a woman is living with a donkey for her husband, and she walks into this church, what should I do? I'll extend my hand and welcome her here. I mean it. If I hear that a woman is living with another woman and yet walks in here, I will not say, get out. I'll say, come on, walk right in. If I hear of a man who is living with another man and they walk right in here, I'll say, oh, you come right through, come. I know the Bible is telling me a man should get married to a woman and a woman should get married to a man. But if those who don't practice that walk in here, I will not chase them. I will welcome them. Because how will I minister to them outside? And what am I saying to them when I tell them, go away? Because if any of these had gone to the Lord Jesus and stooped like that adulterous woman at his feet, he would have welcomed them. And who are we to chase them? We let them come in, and it is when they are amongst us that we begin to tell them the truth about what should be constituted in marriage. But the moment we judge them and think we are dirty and we are holy, we are ourselves making a big mistake. Well, what am I saying? That we who call ourselves Christian believers should listen to God and listen well. Since the mid-80s or late 90s, when I began to do marriage counseling, I've almost always, in fact, in the latter years, I've just always referred to Genesis chapter 24. It's an excellent chapter on pre-marriage, marriage, and post-marriage. And when I took the first couple through that, they look at me and say, "We didn't know you could get so much out of the text." I said, "I'm learning as much from it as you yourselves are." Who should get married? This man and this woman. So it's two different people. Man, woman. But they're not just different people. They're also difficult people. Have you heard of the term, "He's not easy to get along with"? She's not easy to get along with. I wonder who is easy to get along with. I do. Because if each one of us searched ourselves properly, we'll realize how selfish we are. And I often say to those of us who are married, ask yourself what conditions you laid before you went into marriage. It was all about how much you are going to get out of that relationship. And so the whole thing is, he will do this, she will do it, she will, think of how much we're going to get out of it. And what a recipe for disaster that is. Because we should get into the marriage relationship primarily to give and not to get. God so loved the world that he took. He took. Oh, thank you. Somebody said, no, that's true. God so loved that he gave. And that's the secret. If I'm going to a marriage to get, I'll come out very disappointed. I should go out of it, into it, to give. And in these fashionable days, what do people do? We love each other, we're getting married. Who has counseled you? Nobody. We love each other. 2 days later, their love is gone. It doesn't matter who comes to me before they get married. I tell them, even if you've been through 1,000 counselors, at least I'll have a bit of time with you to get to know where you are and where I should take you. Otherwise, I will not officiate your wedding until I get into understanding where you are standing personally before God and before each other. Two different people, two difficult people. But they should be devoted to making this thing work. That means it should be out of love. The Genesis 24 that I referred to, when Isaac sends his servant to get his wife, you know what he says? Through his father, go and get a woman from my people. Well, there must be compatibility to begin with. A Christian should get married to a Christian. A non-Christian to a non-Christian. Because if a Christian gets married to a non-Christian, which is very common amongst us, that's already a problem. Light and darkness cannot mix. And when they mix, there's always trouble. Oh, it worked for so-and-so. The fact that it worked for so-and-so doesn't make it a teaching or a practice to be followed. The teaching of God's word is, Christian, get married to Christian. And here's the test. It's not just any Christian. It's a special Christian as far as you are concerned. What are you saying? Oh, here it is. When Abraham's servant reaches the place where he's going to get Abraham's son's wife, he says, God, I reach this place about the time the women come out and draw water. And when they come out, he is a woman that you should choose for my master. the one who will stand out above all the other women. What? Who will stand out? Yes. Hear me and hear me well. Who are you married to? And how much do they stand out from among the others? If they don't stand out, why did you marry them? Oh, it was a mistake. Now, stick to your mistake. Because the moment you say, I do, it means no going back. Nowadays, there's a lot of excuses. Yes, even in my country, a pastor is standing up to them preaching. He admires a young girl in the pulpit and just says, yeah, when I told my wife I do, I was telling lies. So because it was lies, let's divorce, I'm marrying that one. All sorts of excuses, to try and do away with the present partner to go to somebody else to partner with in marriage. No, the moment you say, I do, it remains. And there are instances of separation that we'll look at in the course of next week. But the basic teaching is, the moment you get married, you stay married. And think about it. Of all the trillions of people, this is the one man, the one woman who says to you, yours until death do us. She must be special to you. If you didn't find anything then, find something now. And you can always find it if you are willing. In my first pastorate, there was a deacon who later became an elder, who always said to me, Pastor, if I'm going to marry again, I'm going to marry the same woman. You will sit here. Where have you looked and said, I'm married here, but I wish it was. Not all that glitters is gold. Stick with the devil you know. If you have to say, God, I want to see beauty in my spouse, such as I see in the next person, you will, because you help me. But best of all, as I say, ask yourself, how may I change in order to make this person love me more? How may I? Almost, you don't even change. You don't. Look at 15 years. No, don't look at you, don't. How may I? God found a way in which to love us. We should find a way in which to make the next person love us. What are we doing about it? Now, as I said, we're just scratching these things. I've just scratched this thing. But if you feel in your singleness, well, I can't do without sex, don't fool around. Get married. When you get married, if you want sex every 15 minutes, that's all right. Do as you are. But if you're not married, stay away. Period.